Thanks everybody for being on board this afternoon. We're really happy to have James. James fills a big need for us behind the plate. Everyone knows that we were deficient there last year and thinner there than we were during the season, during this off season. So James is a real plus for us. Like James for a lot of reasons. First of all, we enjoyed our Zoom conversation with him from his home near Nashville. But more importantly, from an offensive standpoint, from a defensive standpoint, from the standpoint of working with our pitchers and motivating our pitchers, we think he's a great fit for us. James, a right-handed hitter, we're awfully left-handed. James gives us a real threat from the right side. And from a defensive standpoint, significant improvement over the last couple of years, and really due to James' commitment to being better. And that was one of the key motivators for us. And I think also just his relationship with pitchers and the ability to help develop our staff. Obviously, we've got some excellent pitchers with DeGrom and Stroman, but at the same time, we may end up with some younger guys who are going to need, the good counsel of a veteran catcher. So really happy to have James with us. Looking forward to it. Brings a great ethic to his work and to his performance, and very glad he's a Met.
The first thing I'd like to say is just thank you to the entire Mets organization, Sandy and Jared and everyone else that was involved in the process. I couldn't be more excited to be a New York Met, and my family shares that sentiment. I'm very blessed to my wife, my kids, my parents, really everyone from top to bottom. Couldn't be more excited to start, and I look forward to the next 4 years as a New York Met, and see how many championships we can get during that time frame. So the first thing to know about me is I'm going to always pride my game on my defense. I've always felt that way because I truly believe that the catcher can impact the game tenfold defensively than he can offensively, especially over the course of the season. And I think that especially in a day and age where everything is measured through a metric, through analytics. There's one thing that we haven't, as a baseball community, come up with is a value for the relationship between a catcher and a pitcher. And there's a lot of things that go into that. I think the first thing is trust, and the only way you gain that trust is by getting to know somebody. But having that trust between a pitcher and catcher, I think is the most important thing. And from there, you learn what makes guys tick. And I think that's one of my strengths is I do everything I can to get to know somebody and figure out what makes them tick. So when things are going tough, in the biggest moment of the game, what's going to make that guy have the best chance for success? And I think anytime you have a catcher that can figure those things out about his pitchers and get them to that point, it's going to get them to the next level, which in turn is going to make the team a whole heck of a lot better. The biggest thing I did is I sought outside help. With by the previous years of my career, I had never had a specific catching coach or anybody for that matter that was able to sit down and explain to me how the framing metrics worked, how those numbers came about, how just how everything created a score for each individual catcher. So I sought the outside help of a guy who's been around for a long time, Jerry Nairn. And he came to my home here in Nashville, Tennessee, and we worked for a little bit. And the one thing that we talked about consistently was that it wasn't my hands or my abilities that was holding me back. It was my setup. And so from day one, I was able to kind of readjust my setup. And if you go look back and look at film from pre-2020 to 2020, you can see a major difference in how I set up from a glove angle to how high my glove is in the strike zone. Really just the direction that the New York Mets are headed in. From the moment that we heard from the Mets this offseason, it was definitely a team that was high on the list, just because of the guys that they already have in the clubhouse, but also just the addition of the new owner, Sandy, just, Jared, all the above, everything is just trending in the right direction. So that made the New York Mets obviously a very attractive landing spot. And then just the conversations that were had through the course of the offseason leading up to the signing, it really just kind of pushed it over the edge and made it, I say, an easy decision. My prayer the whole time, I grew up in Santa Barbara, California, and I ended up at the University of Arkansas for college. As an 18-year-old, I couldn't have told you why that happened, but it did, because I didn't have words for the reason, and it was just kind of one of those things where God took me there. And that was my prayer that this entire offseason, that my decision would be easy, and that God would show me where I was supposed to be, and he made that decision easy for me. Well, I'll go ahead and answer. I had the opportunity to meet with both Sandy and the coaching staff, and really from the get-go, things just kind of jived as far as how they want to operate in the clubhouse, and how I view my role with the team. And it was, like I said, it became a simple decision that this is where I wanted to be.
Thank you.
From my standpoint, Anthony, it was a great conversation. It came toward the end of the process, the negotiating process. And what struck me was how our side and James sort of had already made an assumption that this was going to happen. And so it wasn't really a selling job as much as it was just providing information, and I think comfort to James about, what we had to offer. And as he mentioned, we had a number of coaches on the call. We had the head of our performance staff on the call. So we wanted to paint as complete a picture as we could of the New York Mets, notwithstanding what was going on with negotiations.
I've said this, I don't know if I ever even said it publicly, but it was something for me that it was tough. I mean, you never want to be told, hey, you're not wanted here. You're effectively, that's what a non-tender is that for whatever reason we're not going to re-up your contract. But it was the best thing that could have happened for my career. It's things happen for a reason, and I'm a big believer in that. And as hard as it was to go through that, and the whirlwind of the last 24 months, I can look back now and say that things happened exactly the way they were supposed to, and it's made me the player that I am today. I'm definitely looking forward to getting to know these guys. I was waiting for everything to become official before I reached out and started that process. But one of the things that I'll be doing, especially once we get through the holidays, but here in the next few weeks, is going over film and watching where guys have success, where maybe they don't have success, and then and being in contact with them, and just kind of getting to know them. And as far as the stuff that I see on film, that's probably something that's going to be more spring training type stuff. But I do want to make sure I get to know guys before we get to spring training. That way we can, we were already, off and running before day one of spring training. But I also I already trained with a couple of guys, Steven Matz and Brad Brock. So I've actually been catching their bullpens for the last 2 or 3 off seasons. So they're guys that I already have a pretty good relationship with. Definitely welcome it. There's no bigger stage than New York, and that's something that I'm very excited about. And my thought process regarding the challenges of playing on that type of underneath in that type of spotlight is there's nobody in the world that has higher expectations for me than I do for myself. And that's kind of how I've always been. I feel like that's part of the reason why I was able to come out of the non-tender and perform the way I was following that. There's just no one that's going to ever outwork me. There's no one that can say anything to me that is, I'm not going to be harder on myself. I mean, it's just the way that I've been since I was a kid, and how I've always operated is that my expectations for myself are so high that, that there's nothing that can change, that type of mindset.